Hello, so our lesson for today is going to be based around measurement and data. We're going to be learning how to solve problems that involve measurement and conversion of measurements. From our picture right here on the screen, we see that we'll be dealing mainly with perimeter and area of a quadrilateral. The two I can statements for our lesson today is that I can explain the area and perimeter formulas, and that I can use the area and perimeter formulas to solve real-world problems. An area is the measurement of unit squares needed to fill the inside of a shape. When we say unit squares, we are talking about squares that fill in the shape like this. This one right here, these little squares are called unit squares. When you put in these unit squares based on the length and the width, that will cover the inside of the shape. The formula for area is length times width. Length describes the top and bottom of the shape, while width describes the sides of our shape. Perimeter is the total distance around the whole shape. The formula is pretty simple for perimeter. You just add up all the sides. Or you can look at it as length plus width plus width. There is another way to look at the formula for perimeter, and I will get into that later on as we solve our real-world problem. The real-world problem that we'll be working with today is that Jerry's dad is teaching him how to make tables out of tiles. Jerry makes a small table that is 5 feet wide and 3 feet long. The two questions that go along with our problem is how many square foot tiles does he need to cover the top of the table, and how many feet of decorative border material will his dad need to cover the edges of the table. So we're going to work with the first question here, which is how many square foot tiles does he need to cover the top of the table. So when we read this question, my eyes go straight to cover the top of the table. This indicates to me that we're going to be working with area, because as we talked about earlier, our area is the measurement of squares needed to fill the inside of the shape. Jerry is trying to cover the top of the table, so he needs the area of the table to know how many square foot tiles he'll need. Now, the problem also told us that the table is 5 feet wide and 3 feet long. Our width then would go right here, so it's 5 feet wide and 3 feet long. Our area formula is length times width, so we're just going to plug in the numbers that they gave us and multiply them. So we're going to do 5 times 3. 5 times 3 will give us our area, and 5 times 3 is 15. So our area for this question is 15. So Jerry will need 15 square foot tiles to cover the top of the table. Our next question is, how many feet of decorative border material will his dad need to cover the edges of the table? As I read this question, my eyes go straight to cover the edges of the table. This cover the edges of the table tells me that we're working with perimeter. I know that we're working with perimeter based on the definition of perimeter that we talked about before, which is the total distance around the whole shape. We need to find the total distance of the whole shape so we know how many feet his dad's going to need to cover the edges of the table. Now, we have 5 feet wide and 3 feet long again for Jerry's table. So let's label our square. We have 5 on this side for width, 5 on this side for width, 3 at the top for length, and 3 at the bottom for length. Our perimeter formula tells us to add up all the sides. So that's going to be 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 3. 5 plus 5 is 10. We're going to group those and bring them down. 3 plus 3 is 6. 10 plus 6 gives us 16. So our perimeter would be 16. Now I mentioned earlier that there's another way that we can look at the perimeter formula, and that's as a multiplication problem. As you see on our rectangle that we have here, there's 2 5s that represent our width and 2 3s that represent our lengths. We can multiply 5 by 2, so we have 5 times 2, because we have it 2 times, and add that to 3 times 2, or 3 times 2, because just like the 5, it comes up 2 times. 5 times 2 is 10. 3 times 2 is 6. And just like above, we have 10 plus 3. Bring down the plus sign. 10 plus 6 gives us 16, just like we answered above. If you wanted to write out what this perimeter formula would look like, it would be perimeter equals the width times 2 plus the length times 2. That is another way to look at it other than our other way of looking at it, which is length plus width plus width. So after doing it the 2 different ways that we can to find perimeter, we now know that it is 16. So Jerry's dad will need 16 feet of decorative border material to cover the edges of the table. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it's helped you learn and better understand how to apply the area and perimeter formulas onto real-world problems to help you solve and answer those questions.